Hey everybody, this is Jordan Keeley, your independent MLA from Peace River North. I just wanted to give you an update and a recap of this week, and I'm back home now for the weekend, and then I'll be back in the legislature. But, it's been, how do I say it, a roller coaster in the legislature that the NDP are bringing in a large amount of bills. And these bills, they don't look like much on the surface, just kind of housekeeping, what they call them. But then there's a lot that's hidden underneath of them that are giving them a huge amount of control behind the scenes to give them a lot of power to make decisions how they govern us without any sort of checks and balances. And I also wanted to bring up that there's been some bills brought to the House, and they've been brought by 1BC, and they're bills that they're items that we should be talking about, whether it's land acknowledgements, whether it's immigration. When these come into the House, they come to first reading, and we don't actually see the full bill. And the whole point of first reading is to acknowledge the bill, vote it in, and then you get to see the whole bill. And when it came to the land acknowledgement, is that I was one of the few people, there was only 5 of us, to actually vote it in. And I think it's important that we have to see the bill before we vote yay or nay to shoot it down. That's the whole point of the House, is that conversations and discussions need to happen in that House. It's not just that the items that the NDP bring forward be discussed, that immigration is a very important subject. Illegal immigration is a very important subject, and it needs to be discussed. And we're seeing an alienation that shouldn't happen, that we should have discussions. When it comes to land acknowledgements, I don't think a lot of people understand what's happening when it comes to a land acknowledgement and what the purpose is, that it's saying one thing, but it's not addressing the problem. And my perspective on land acknowledgement is that it's not actually fixing the true issue, and that the true issue is that in the past, First Nations weren't treated properly. And that was the federal government that did that, and that they're responsible for that reconciliation. And they should be the ones responsible for reconciling, not placing that burden on the people, because essentially there's not a lot that people can do to really reconcile over something that happened that long ago. But when you look at what's really happening with UNDRIP and DRIPA, and where this conversation really needs to happen, is with the decision that's being made down in Richmond when it comes to land title happening upon land title. And when you have ceded and unceded land, not a lot of people really understand ceded and unceded land, how that works. When Douglas came to British Columbia, he established treaties. That treaty acknowledged that there was an agreement between First Nations and the government. And when that treaty happened, for example, in my region, we have Treaty 8. That agreement was done, and that land was ceded to the government to be able to use with certain parameters in place that they had to adhere to. And they've screwed up on a bunch of things that I completely acknowledge that. And that's the government that has to deal with that. When that land is ceded over, it gives a lot of security to title within that treaty land for private fee simple landowners. What's happening now is that in 80% of British Columbia, there's large portions of land that are unceded. And we're seeing that challenge now in Richmond with that unceded land that is creating instability, and people, it's what our foundation is built on when we strive so hard to be able to buy land and have it to be able to hand down to our children. If that's now in question, it creates so much uncertainty across the province. This is something that the province and the federal government are responsible to rectify. And I personally think that in the House, we should be talking about these items. We should be talking about how the government reconciles with First Nations. But right now, a lot of that is done behind closed doors. And when we do hear about it, it's the decision's already made, and people really have no clue what's going on. And I personally think that modern-day treaties should be done across the whole province. And when it comes to revenue sharing agreements or ownership into projects or into resources, maybe they can pool that together, have a trust, and it gets split equally across all the First Nations. That's just my opinion. And it's something where that conversation has to happen. But right now, I'm seeing so much of those conversations not happening unless you're on the government side of the house, and they happen behind closed doors. And we're seeing so many closed doors situations happening, and it's creating distrust. It's creating divisions. And personally, I've sat in far too many taxpayer-funded meetings where there's 20 minutes of land acknowledgements. That's taxpayers' money that pays for those meetings. Something has to happen better. And right now, I don't think anybody should feel guilty about what happened in the past that we didn't involve in. Imagine being an immigrant or a doctor that comes over here from another country, and they're told that they need to reconcile with First Nations. And they say, well, I haven't done anything to First Nations. What do I need to reconcile for? You're insinuating that the person needs to feel guilty about something. And I don't think that should happen. I really think that we should find a way going forward where we can truly embrace each other and help Canada find its identity again. Because right now, if I asked 100 people what's Canada's identity, they probably wouldn't be able to give me a straight answer. And for me, it's frustrating that when I'm in government and those conversations are supposed to happen, and they just get shot down or they're ridiculed, that I said that I got questioned about why did you support that bill for the land acknowledgements? And I said, I didn't actually see the bill. I voted in first reading to be able to see a bill. Doesn't matter what the bill is in first reading. You don't actually see the bill until second reading or until it actually gets introduced. Then you see the bill. You can see what it's about. You can actually make an informed decision about what it is. And I think that's what we really have to be looking at. And it's one of the things that really makes me hate the polarized party politics that happen, is that they're just not representing the people anymore. And it's, as an independent, I'm going to make sure that I'm there. I'm going to keep on posting videos, and I'm going to show that I'm questioning these items and that I'm bringing them forward, and that I want these conversations to be had. But I just want to say that that's my update. That it's been so busy in the house, it left me brain dead pretty much the next day after the legislature. But I'm looking forward to the next week that we can tackle a lot more issues, and we'll see what happens. I just want to let people know that there's so much going on right now where the governments are just taking more and more control over our lives, and they're trying to cover it up. And I want to let you know. So please watch and follow, and I'll keep on doing more videos. Thank you. Have a good weekend.